Welcome to the Coach's Cup. I am Sonya Green from Sonya Green Coaching.
I'm Judith Fender. I'm one of the amazing coaches with the No BS weight loss program.
I think I surprised both of us.
You did. She did. We were like, well, let's record. We are recording now. Like, dang, Sonya.
So welcome to all of us. Here we are.
Saturday night. We're having some Saturday night fun here tonight, talking about boundaries.
That's right. So let's talk about boundaries, Judith. What is a boundary?
It's something you throw down when you go to a family reunion and you tell people. Am I right?
And how does that work?
Not well.
No. You know, this is a concept. I will say, I have had to explain this to a lot of my coaching clients because you're right. The thought when we hear boundary, what we think is, well, you better not cross this line.
Because I told you not to do that. I told you.
Exactly. And I think, most people, that's what they think of when they think of a boundary.
Right. And they see it as a mechanism, manipulation to control other people's behavior.
Yes.
When in fact, a boundary it's healthy for a relationship, and a true boundary is for your safety first. I'm pointing to me.
Yes.
Then it makes the relationship safe.
Yes. Yes. So, I mean, people are going to do things that we don't like.
Yes.
Always and forever.
Yes.
The more, well, anyway, I'm not going to qualify it there. They just will. Boundaries are for us. So that we don't spend our time in anger and resentment toward those other people, because surprise, folks, we will never, ever, ever control anybody else.
Never.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. We control us.
I've been watching a show called The Watcher. Have you heard of it?
I have. I'm trying to place it. I can't place it right now, but I have heard of it.
Well, good news. It's only seven shows long on Netflix. And it ends. So there is no sequel. So I'm so grateful that I don't have to keep watching.
Awesome.
But it's supposedly based on a true story about a house. It's very complex, I think.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I have the final one to watch. But all this to say is, as I knew we were going to talk about boundaries, part of what happens in the story is this, this lovely couple buys this beautiful home in, like, I don't know, New Jersey, somewhere outside of New York City. And there's some quirky neighbors, some weird things happening in the house. And right away when they move in, they're like trying to live their life, and they'll walk into the kitchen and there'll be the neighbor Jasper just standing there, or Jasper's in the dumbwaiter, right? So it has this historical dumbwaiter in the house. All this to say, right? So the dad and the family, I'm going to try to attach this to a boundary.
Yeah.
The dad just gets mad. He just starts screaming at people, right? Like, but here's the thing. Jasper was in his personal space, literal and figurative personal space in his property. Yeah. But if we think about our intellectual property, if you will, our personal knowing of ourselves, and that's what we're protecting, is that knowing and our peace, our personal property of the self, and it's for our safety. So thinking about this man and having Jasper and these weird people, I'm telling you what, everybody gets in this man's house, everybody. But yeah. So
do they not lock their doors?
Oh yeah, they do. But then there's like, I can't even talk past that. I don't want to give anything away.
Well, but here's the thing. We can't control those people. We
Not
can
even with security cameras. Security cameras in the house. The police couldn't help him. Like, nobody could help this poor man keep all these people out of his house.
But that's what we do. We get angry and we yell at the people when we can only control ourselves. So in a situation like that, a boundary would be, if you're going to keep coming in my house and there's no way to stop you, which seems a little far-fetced, but
Right.
then
I know.
I am moving to South Dakota or
Well, that's the whole
whatever.
thing. They want him to move,
Okay.
but he doesn't want to sell the house. But
Good plan.
we'll see how it ends.
Yeah.
So, but thinking about a boundary being, I think of it as being definitely being relational. It's being in relationship with yourself, relationship with others, and thinking about the difference between an expectation or how expectations are included in a boundary.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, for those of us who don't like conflict, this is going to be good news. You do not have to tell someone else necessarily that you have a boundary. Because the boundary is for you, once again, not for them. So if someone, let's say somebody calls me every day now, and it interrupts, let's say they call during my work time, and I answer and they just want to chat, and I start to get angry. I start fuming. Don't they know that this is my work time? I have two options there.
This is such a good example.
I can tell them, hey, this is my work time. I can't take calls from you if you call at this time. And then here's the kicker, folks. We have to actually not take the call.
That's right.
But if we don't want to hurt their feelings or whatever we've convinced ourselves we're going to do by being honest about it, and I'll just tell you, I always prefer to be honest about it. But if you don't want to have that conflict, then just turn your phone off while you're at work and don't answer. You won't even know that they've called until after your work time. And you look at your phone. Oh, look, well, they called again.
Right. Versus spending all your time getting angry. I can't believe so-and-so's called me. Can you believe? And like telling
if
this
so-and-so calls you every day, they're going to keep doing it. They might even keep doing it if you do confront them and say, hey, I would like you to stop, because you can't control them.
So Dean, the main character in this story, the dad.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like, how could Dean effectively communicated his boundary with Jasper? And Jasper is, I mean, he's so innocent. He's a lovely, he's special. But he could have said some words, but he never once enforced any kind of boundary except to say, get out of my house. Never why.
Yeah. Right. That we are funny creatures. So many times we don't want to enforce boundaries, especially those people pleasers who may or may not be amongst us. We think that if we're honest with somebody, that they won't like us or we will hurt their feelings.
Or, I have a client who is working with a family relative, and the family relative is older, needs help, and this client wants to help from a place of love, but she's worried herself sick because this family member will not, in her words, is being stubborn, doesn't want to communicate about this thing, like her house is going to fall in, it's going to fall in on itself, and my client wants to help her. And so to your point, wait a minute, you said a sentence. But the main thing, so my client loves her aunt, And I was coaching her on, when we make that decision to help someone, you don't want to go in with that worry energy and wringing your hands because you're so used to people pleasing and letting her have the final word. You have to go in with some authority and say, dear so-and-so, I love you. I love you a lot and I want to help you, but here's the limit of how I can help you. And here's the timeline. And if you want me to help you, here's how this is going to go. And this was very, would this be explicit, right? She's using her words saying, if by this time we don't have this deadline met, I can't help you. And I will not come in your house and I will not come have breakfast with you because I worry about my safety. Right. So this was a very, I hope this is like a good example of.
Absolutely.
Of
because
like,
the boundary is for her.
yes, because she's worried for her relatives' safety.
Yes.
And it's also for her, it got down to it. She's like, well, I don't know how I'm going to visit her because I don't want to go in the house.
Yeah.
Like, well, this is a big deal.
But ultimately, whether or not her aunt does this, agrees to it, whatever, she can't control that, but she can keep that boundary. She can say, okay, I'm not coming in to have breakfast with you anymore. And she has to hold that, not for her aunt's sake, but for her own sake.
Right. And 100% and made with love for her to enforce and not her relative.
I would say, I mean, boundaries always need to come from love, right? They can't
If
come
they're
from
not, then they're ultimatums.
exactly, they're threats.
Yes.
And how good does that feel?
Shitty.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about last week about resentment when we were talking about the manual and boundaries. People who don't have and keep their boundaries feel lots of resentment. They feel all kinds of negative, bad feelings that, yes, life is 50-50, but these are feelings we don't have to feel. We are choosing to because we won't get honest.
Right.
With ourselves, with other people, in our relationships.
And the flip side of that, like resentment is something that comes up so often in coaching and in Ask Coaches. And it's one of those where, like, look at if you are feeling resentment, that just needs to be your indicator to check in. Where am I not being honest with myself? Where am I telling a big ass story on someone?
Yes.
I need to use my words too.
Yes. We well, in our pre-gaming today, we were talking about that. I think, as far as I know, there's always an awareness I have when I'm lying to myself. I'm always on to myself in some way because I feel usually I am in integrity with myself and it's an awareness I have. And when I'm out of integrity, I feel it. It's different depending on the feeling that I'm feeling, but I'm always aware that something's off. And I think most of us, we have that.
Oh, we talked about in our pregame, like, we'll just say my whole last year was all about me learning about what a people pleaser I was and how much anxiety I was in. And then just the layers of understanding for me was very complex. Now, if you would have asked me on the surface, I would never. It was one of the first things Corinne coached me on was call me a people pleaser, that I was a liar. And I was just like, how dare her to myself? Like, what? I'm not I'm a nice person. That's what I am. And da 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 da, which I am.
Well, right.
But I was not, I'm going to say, and these are my thoughts about me. I just didn't realize that didn't even realize no was an option to even say it in some areas of my life, not every area, in certain areas.
Yes. And boundaries are what help us get honest with ourselves about those things, because yes or no is always a choice.
And a complete sentence.
And
yes, is a complete sentence. Ooh, that's a big one for me too.
Yes, so many of us don't say no because we feel shame or obligation or something. We don't like our reason. We're afraid that people won't like us if we tell them why. You don't have to tell anybody why.
And we make it sound so simple. We're talking now. Some people can't say no. Also because they're paralyzed and they have been people pleasing so long, they don't have their voice, that ability to even in the moment have the capacity to express from being frozen or whatever. You said something I was going to spin off of and it just left my brain.
Well, let me just say that, we do make this sound so simple, and I don't mean to simplify it, because it's not easy for most people.
It's an onion.
Yes, it is. So again, it's not, if you can't say no, then you just need to practice.
It's why you need a coach.
It is why you need a coach. It has, yeah.
So to help you figure out, because these boundaries are, they're in every facet of our life. They're in work relationships, with your money, and sexual relationships, and a relationship with yourself and family, and whatever you can think of. You have relationships in areas where you want to have boundaries for you.
And people who love you, who care about you, they will respect the fact that you have boundaries.
Yeah.
I so many times my saying yes to something came from a fear. And I think, it does. Are they going to like me? Are they going to love me still? But when I say no, I think there's a certain kind of respect that people are like, wow.
Well, it's like a safety, because that person will tell you no and mean it. And that means when they say yes, they mean that too.
Yes.
But if you're always saying yes to the point where you're the doormat, then, that's where you really want to check in on yourself.
Yeah.
Or others. If there are look at people in your life who may be always your yes people. And maybe they're doing things from that space of trying to please you. And it's a real, on many ends of the spectrum, on both sides of the relationship, it requires some introspection for us all to look at who is serving us and from what energy are they serving us.
Yes.
And how are we serving others, and what energy are we doing that from? What feeling?
Yeah. Yeah. All comes back to integrity. All right.
Love. Yep. Let me look over my notes real quick before we hang up.
Okay.
Oh, I had a good quote. I need to say it.
Let's hear it.
Okay. So I came up with this. So boundaries are less restricting and allow for various outcomes. An expectation is very outcome and kind of does nothing to let others know their limit.
Right.
Boundaries are healthy and inclusive and live in possibility. And expectations are damaging and have one outcome, and they're kept to themselves. So the bottom line was, a boundary is a warm coat. An expectation is a straitjacket. I was like,
I love that.
Yeah.
Have you ever had somebody who blew up at you, like all of a sudden, or you blew up at somebody because it had been building and building and building, but then you can tell from their reaction, or they can probably tell from your reaction when they blow up. I had no idea. I had no idea that this was
stories in their head. Yes.
We live in our head instead of speaking words.
Right.
Yeah.
So true. Let me see what else. I had a second page. That's where I mentioned about boundaries. They can be your physical boundaries too.
Yes.
Around your body.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But they are for you. Yep. Other people have nothing to do with other people.
I'm going to beat you to the punch.
Okay.
You're looking for coaching. You can find me on Instagram. It's just Judy. On Instagram. Is that right? I'm getting ready to get out my email.
JUST, JUDIE.
And if you're looking for a coach in weight loss, you can find me with the No BS weight loss program. And we have a lovely Facebook group that Sonya has started for the Coaches Cup podcast. And we would love to get a 5-star review from you guys. I mean, we know, I mean, we're over 30,000 downloads. We need your, is it 5 stars? Is it
5-star
4
review on iTunes. That's
stars?
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me keep going.
And if it's been a while, we've got some people who it looks like every so often they drop a review in there
Yes.
multiple times. So I
We're gonna call
appreciate
out
that.
Janet.
Janet's awesome. Yeah. And we've had some great comments over the last couple of weeks with our podcast on the Facebook group. So it is a lot of fun.
Yeah, so our little call to action could be little 5-star review and drop in a comment in the Facebook group about, with the holidays coming and asking, if you have a question about a boundary, hit us up.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Because sometimes if this concept is new to you, you may have a question. Yeah, just drop that in the Facebook page and we'll be happy to answer it.
And wouldn't it be fun to have a little Q&A?
It would be. That would be fun. We need to think about that. All right. If you're looking for coaching from me, you can find me at sonyagreencoaching.com or on Instagram at Sonya, SONYA _green coaching. All
Sweet.
right. We'll see you next week, folks.
Bye.